Um, Thank you very much, Claire, and thank you to Alan for inviting me to speak this morning to you and to Paulina, his colleague, for pulling it all together. I was trying to take a look at the uh, attendee list to try and understand the audience and what the skill sets or interests the audience has, so that we could sort of target the topic a little bit. So some of the information I have here will be of interest to some of you. Some of you may not be interested at all. I'm going to start off with a quick, very brief outline of IPUT, what we do, who we are. I'll skip over that fairly quickly. And then I'll just go into some of the sort of trends as we see it in the real estate industry at the moment, because things have changed fairly significantly since I suppose COVID was a milestone. It's not the only reason, but lifestyles are changing, habits are changing, and we have to adapt in terms of what we're developing and designing, working with our professional teams. So just up on the slide there, that's just a little bit about IPUT. I won't go into it too much. We're a fairly significant player in Dublin, very much Dublin centric. Our developments are sort of primarily commercial, and we have a fairly significant pipeline of logistics projects ahead of us for the next sort of 5 years. So Nexus, just beyond the airport, is our next large logistics project, and we're rolling out some of the considerations in our logistics developments. Based on the learnings from our commercial pipeline, which we're in the middle of. So you can see some images of the developments there on the right hand side. Just in the center there, the center circle, you can see that the sort of the guiding principles by which we operate. So in the blue, red and grey color there, you can see that it covers the spectrum of ESG. So this is just some of the guiding principles for our organization in terms of our decision making. And what we consider when we're developing property, and also when we're operating it, because we develop and we manage some of our own developments also. So what are smart buildings? I suppose there's no definitive definition of smart buildings. However, I like this one because it's quite simple. So it's really just the notion that technologies and sensors and automations come together, and it includes different systems, and that those sensors, those devices make data available. And as I said to somebody this morning, having loads of data is great, but actually doing something with data is where the real value is. And so smart buildings and intelligent buildings, sometimes they can be the same but different. We like to be very practical and keep it simple, and try not to do too much smart stuff, but try and do a little bit more intelligent stuff in terms of use cases and what devices are useful, and what data coming from those devices is useful for us or useful for an occupier of ours. So just some of the characteristics. Internet of Things is sort of an interesting space, even though in lots of cases IoT devices have been replaced with BMS devices, just because the integration opportunities available with the likes of the Niagara and the open source platform operation available. Automation, obviously, that's the notion that we're no longer relying on manual controls. A lot of the environments that we're creating, or the systems that we're introducing, have an element of automation and intelligence built in, and they have their own algorithms which allow them to operate at max efficiency in order to get the best possible outcome. So again, it's not all about the building management system anymore. A lot of the equipment providers, in the form of multifunction heat pumps, air handling units, domestic water systems, they're bringing their own level of intelligence now, which is no longer relying on the building management system to tell it what to do, other than potentially go on and off. Sustainability focus, obviously, when it comes to energy, we're talking about electricity, we're talking about gas, even though less so with gas anymore. Water, obviously, is something that's, you know, a finite resource. Even in a wet country like Ireland, we do need to really consider the water consumption that we have, and there are you know, interesting and clever ways of doing that. And then just the whole idea of the connectivity and the analytics, which I mentioned earlier on, that we can have loads of devices, loads of data, but it's the use of the data and the use of the analytics, I think, is where the real value is. And I think that's where Connor and Tomas probably offer a little bit more value there in terms of what their design and what their systems can do in terms of the analytics of the data and making it sort of more interesting and more beneficial. So then, I suppose, why as developers, why would we consider smart buildings to be of value to us? So it's an interesting one, and I guess we're always trying to second guess our clients who would be investors, who would be occupiers. So we're always trying to understand, well, what elements can we include in a development or design of a development which will increase a rent premium. So again, we're in a different marketplace now. Obviously, rent roll is our business, letting space is our business. So we're always interested in how we can maximize rent and rent premiums, how we can increase the value of the property, and how we can attract occupiers who appreciate the value of the equipment and the sensors and the data and the design decisions that we make, which may facilitate the user or an occupier of a building to use in the course of their occupation of the building. So what we do is we make buildings smart ready, but in lots of cases it's the occupier who drives the consumption of the building, and they're the ones who ultimately, whose people occupy the spaces, and they need to consider things like comfort levels and productivity. So just the operational efficiency of the building. Obviously, we as landlords, we're not so much responsible for the cost of the energy consumption. Is typically something that's passed on to the occupiers. However, we can't shy away from the carbon cost, and that's where the real cost is for us as landlords. And then there's obviously operation efficiencies to be gained when you talk about predictive maintenance. Again, we're back to sensors, we're back to devices, we're back to connectivity, we're back to analytics, we're back to fault detection, and all those sort of clever opportunities that are there now. The regulation space, obviously, in lots of cases, regulations are driving what we do, or at least influencing what we do. And that's good. That keeps us in check. It pushes us to do the right things. We have our own corporate social responsibility guidelines, which I mentioned on the previous slide. But the green building standards are also helping to guide us in the right direction. And we talk about LEED and WELL and the accreditations for the buildings. They're very much sort of playbooks for design for the design consultants, which feed into the making the data available. Okay, so I referred earlier on to the idea of planning and design. So it's interesting that in the course, we're now in a position whereby we have data sets available from some of our buildings, and this is particularly relevant in our logistics pipeline of buildings, whereby we have logistics development called Quantum, which is out beyond the airport, which is a development of 4 large logistics buildings. We put in some IoT sensors into those buildings in the course of the development, and the data from those devices has actually helped us in terms of our design for our Nexus buildings. So it allowed us to clash indoor air quality, indoor air temperature with external air temperature to understand how our building fabric was performing, how the use of the spaces by the occupiers was impacting on the heat or air quality or humidity even within those spaces. And then it allows us to challenge the designers when they say we need to put in heating, we need to put in trace heating, we need to put in air handling units. And then we have sort of the data and the backup to be able to say, well, perhaps we do, but we can prove that our facade is performing to a very high degree. Therefore, the need to heat the spaces may not be there to the extent that you're suggesting, which then means we put in a smaller amount of kit, and then there's a sort of a carbon consideration there in the terms of the and cost indeed. So that's just a good example where we're taking planning and design decisions based on data sets that we have available, which are substantial enough in terms of a period of time through 4 seasons of the year to allow us to make those sorts of decisions in an informed basis. Again, I was talking to Conor about it or this morning, and Paul even, that we have new developments whereby we can make easy decisions at design and construction stage to put in devices and sensors, and that's a slightly easier decision. When we look at some of our older properties, which wouldn't necessarily have the same technology there because of life cycle and obsolescence, it's a little bit more cumbersome to put it in retrospectively. The options are there now, and particularly with the IT devices. So the new construction versus retrofit, there are obviously different considerations there. The scalability, that's a very interesting one. I mentioned earlier on that very much we tend to make our buildings smart ready or smart enabled, so that the occupiers of the buildings can then come along and take the next step. But at least we're giving them a good foundation. So that's the scalability point there. And then there's the financial considerations, obviously, and the return on investment, which sometimes is difficult to quantify, a little less tangible. And then the grants, obviously, and the incentives. There are good opportunities there for developers like ourselves to take advantage of energy efficiency upgrade grants. So that's another good reason to pursue them. So the benefits for the occupiers, then, I think Conor Moss might touch on this. So comfort levels are a big thing. Indoor air quality is a big thing now. It's probably something that wasn't really on our radar pre-COVID, or certainly on most people's radar pre-COVID. But the comfort levels and productivity are very much aligned. So if somebody's going to be at their desk in their office for 6, 8, 10 hours a day, comfort level in the form of indoor air quality and temperature can directly impact on productivity, particularly in sort of afternoon period when that 3 p.m. slump can kick in. And then when you come away from sort of HVAC related opportunities, obviously security is quite a significant factor now. Certainly the feedback we're getting from our occupiers is that security is important to them, both in the form of physical security, cybersecurity, and security for their people. So there are additional opportunities there in the security space, which again can fall under the heading of smart. And then the data-driven insights, that's very much back to the having the data, analyzing the data, and then making changes, be they operational or strategic, to improve efficiency, improve comfort levels, boost productivity. That's really all back to the occupiers' priorities. But it's something that we would support them a lot with, which is a little bit of a value add as the landlord. So then just some of the challenges. The upfront costs can be significant, but I guess it's a long-term play. You're putting in a device, you're putting in a sensor, you're putting in a system, you're looking to collect data, and the initial upfront cost can be high, but the value over a long period of time can outweigh the actual cost. So that's something that we're sort of very aware of and very committed to. I think the whole complexity of integrations now is becoming less of an issue. I think Conor and Tomas will probably speak to this a little bit more, just with the sort of the open source nature, and APIs, data transfer, mapping of data. That's all sort of much more prevalent and easier to do now. So the interoperability issues are not so much a challenge anymore with new developments, but certainly in older developments, and that's sort of part of the obsolescence and the upgrading conversation. Data security and privacy, that's a huge one. Big corporates in particular, we've had obviously a number of cybersecurity attacks locally in the last number of years. I think I heard there was one over the weekend there on an academic institution, I think in Dundalk. So, that's very much the one that's never going to go away. It's now part of our space because we're running systems, we're online, we're mapping data, we're crossing over. So we're using, so the data security and cybersecurity considerations are certainly there. the whole readiness of the space, and I guess that's probably one of the reasons that we're all here. That the market is slowly adopting and embracing and becoming a little bit more confident with smart and with data. Probably not there yet, but we just need to sort of bring all the stakeholders along and try and be a little bit more aligned, and that includes our clients who would tend to be the occupiers, and also on the other side of the transaction will be the investors. Someone asked me the question earlier on: would a building be considered more valuable because it has a better data set? I suppose that there isn't a right or wrong answer to that. It's a little bit of an intangible. You'd imagine the answer would be yes, but in reality, it's probably not as certain as that. So the future of smart buildings, I think that this topic is going to be covered in a couple of minutes, but certainly there are huge opportunities in the area of AI and machine learning. Weather prediction, I think, is going to be key when it comes to energy efficiency, building management systems, optimization, startup cycles, especially now that we're no longer operating a Monday to Friday sort of 8 to 6 type environment. The working week has changed a lot. Friday occupancy in the building in buildings is certainly down. I think that's probably just the new reality. So why would you heat and cool and ventilate the space fully on a Friday afternoon with potentially somewhere between 40 and 50% occupancy, the same way that you would on a Tuesday morning when you might have 79 to 90% occupancy. The connectivity, that speaks for itself. The connectivity opportunities are available there now. Are available. Building as a service, that's sort of an interesting concept. Rather than just letting space, are you letting spaces and services and added value? I certainly think there are opportunities there. Integration with smart cities, I think there's a lot of collaboration opportunities available in this forum, and people who are not here but who are part of the CitA network, whereby groups and interested bodies can potentially collaborate a little bit more using data sets and analytics. And then just some of the sort of the key takeaways then, as we see it. I mean, this isn't necessarily the IPUT playbook. It's a little bit sort of my own views, and just from talking to people in the industry, is that the economic benefits are there for sure, and I think they should be pursued. The investment piece, we should continue to drive on with the investment in the idea of smart. Make buildings, make spaces smart enabled, so that at least you have the groundwork done. And then the occupiers who are our clients, they're more savvy, they're more discerning. They're looking for more technologically advanced spaces, spaces that offer a little bit more. And there's the quality of life, there's the wellness, there's the productivity, all those considerations, and that's very, very important to us. So I think that covers sort of the piece that we want to contribute. I think Connor and Tomas are going to speak a little bit more in detail about the sorts of technologies and use cases that are available. So I hope that's been beneficial for you so far, and thank you very much for your attention.